The observation deck of the Aurora's Grace lay silent except for the soft hum of the ship's quantum core. Floor-to-ceiling viewports curved overhead, projecting the inky blackness of space interrupted only by distant stars and a lone jewel. Of blue and green, Tevrael. Captain Sral drifted forward, her six-segmented eyes reflecting the planet's luminescent atmosphere like pools of liquid opal. "It shimmers more than I remember," she murmured. Her mandibles clicked thoughtfully as she adjusted the viewport's sensor filters, bringing the planet into sharper focus. Below the swirling white clouds, vast continents sprawled, crisscrossed by veins of turquoise ocean. Islands the size of moons played hide-and-seek among archipelagos. For centuries, Tevrael had intrigued the Orinthian collective, a world of complex weather patterns, rich biospheres, and a species notoriously curious about the stars. But curiosity was not what thrummed through the sensor grid now. A new signature pulsed beneath the clouds, the telltale heat flashes of ignition, one after another, like wave upon wave of silent fireworks far below. Lieutenant Rivak materialized at Sral's side, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing a nervous blue. "Captain, I'm reading. Engine activations, thousands of them." Sral's crest shield quivered as she leaned in. "Red, amber, flare sequences?" she asked. Rivak nodded. "Standard Earthling military pattern, ignition, liftoff, formation, flight." The planet's horizon was now alive with movement. Hundreds of silver-winged craft ascending in tight V formations, trailing plumes of fire that carved temporary scars in the atmosphere. The deep rumble transmitted through the ship's hull, faint but unmistakable. "They're mobilizing en masse," Sral said, her voice low. "Use the deep-range spectrometer. Scan for armaments." On the next panel, snippets of data scrolled. Plasma cannons, missile pods, electromagnetic pulse projectors, human weapons, designed for destruction. Sral turned to her bridge crew. "Alert the council," she ordered. "Prepare the diplomatic envoys. We must know their intent." Chorus of affirmatives rippled through the deck. Within moments, the Orinthian diplomatic shuttle, a sleek vessel of living crystal, glowed into existence at a side bay. Its hull shifted hues in response to the crew's emotions, pale lavender for concern, bright gold for determination. Yet, as the envoy prepared to depart, another signal rippled across the deck, a cascading volley of beam weapons targeted at the asteroid fortresses of the Ring of Sarasun, Tevrael's neutral trading outpost. "Hostile action," shouted Ensign Thole, her eyes wide. "They're firing on civilians." The viewport erupted in a silent ballet of deadly light. Beams of cobalt energy carved through the crystal domes of the ring stations, reducing elegant spires to molten slag. In an instant, the air inside Aurora's Grace crackled with tension. Captain Sral clenched her multifaceted hands. "By the weave," she swore, the Orinthian oath that bound them to harmony and balance. "They've broken all protocol." Rivak's tendrils flickered crimson. "They celebrate each strike," he reported, voice tense. Repeating broadcasts of cheers and martial music, Sral's crest shield flattened in dismay. Humans had always fascinated the Orinthians with their dichotomy of creativity and violence, but such unrestrained zealotry was beyond anything the collective had seen. In their own wars, Orinthians fought only to restore balance, never to conquer for glory. On the bridge's holomap, the humans' assault pattern advanced like a living thing, spreading outward from Tevrael's surface to the silent sanctuaries of the asteroid ring. Sral tapped a control, overlaying diplomatic channels. "This is Captain Sral of the Orinthian Collective," she began, her voice calm yet steely. "Cease your attack on the Ring of Sarasun or face collective reprisal." Silence followed. Then, through the crackle of static came a human voice, gruff, exhilarated. "This is General Campos of the Tevrael Expeditionary Force. We are liberating our people from isolation. No further warning." They hung up. A collective gasp echoed through the bridge. The humans had declared war. Sral sank into her command chair, her mind racing. Memories flickered of first contact missions, hospitable welcomes, shared knowledge, cultural exchanges. None of this had hinted at a latent aggression of such magnitude. She exhaled, mandibles quivering. "Plot a course to intercept," she ordered, voice cutting through the stunned quiet. "Bring all defensive arrays to ready and prepare for battle." As the Aurora's grace veered toward the storm of human aggression, its crew felt the weight of history shift on its axis. Above Tevril, the void shimmered, no longer a silent witness, but a crucible in which the fates of two intelligent species would soon be forged. Lieutenant Rivak's mapping chamber was suffused with the pale glow of holoscreens, each floating panel alive with human symbols, patterns, and schematics. He drifted between two large projection fields. One displayed a rotating, three-dimensional model of Tevrael's surface, the other scrolled line after line of intercepted communiques in human standard binary, now painstakingly decrypted into Orinthian script. "Captain," Rivak said, his tendrils flickering from blue to violet as he isolated a cluster of transmissions. "These aren't mere battle orders. They're ideological manifestos." He swept a slender hand, and the hollow world zoomed into one of humanity's dropships. "Note how they refer to themselves as the heirs of lost glory, invoking some prophecy of reclamation." Sral leaned forward, mandibles clicking softly. "Read me the translation." Rivak's bioluminescent nerves pulsed in rhythm as he spoke the human's own words. "We carry the bloodline of pioneers. Our destiny is written in the stars. We once dared to dream. To claim what was stolen is our sacred duty." The phrase "what was stolen" reverberated in Sral's mind. Centuries ago, humans had colonized only the fringes of Tevrael and then withdrawn behind planetary defenses, courting isolation rather than expansion. Now they spoke as if entitled to the entire system. Across the chamber, Ensign Falry and Analyst. Thol projected animated overlays of weapon yields and troop concentrations, missile salvos, plasma broadsides, even subterranean seismic charges. Human forces were not content with a single front. They intended total domination. Sral closed, her multifaceted eyes tasting the metallic tang of apprehension. "They view war as ritual," she observed. "A passage, not a last resort." Elder Artol's voice echoed through the comlink, calm yet grave. "The Orinthian collective treats conflict as a wound to be healed, not a spectacle to be admired. Their celebratory broadcasts—" "It is abhorrent," Sral nodded. "We must convene the council immediately." The council amphitheater floated in a grand chamber carved from living crystal, its walls refracting every hue of the spectrum. 12 elders, each a master of a different discipline, history, ethics, xenobiology, sat in concentric rings around a central plinth where Sral stood. The floor beneath her shifted from silver to deep indigo in anticipation. "My fellow custodians," Sral began, voice steady. "Human forces have mobilized under a banner of conquest. They have broken every treaty, fired upon neutral territories, and now threaten our very existence." Elder Artol's tendrils shimmered lavender. "Their zeal is fueled by myth," he said. "We have decoded their great chronicle, an epic poem they recite before battle. It speaks of restoring a stolen inheritance, a claim with no basis in our records." "That prophecy," chimed historian Vale, his eyes reflecting 1,000 data streams, "originated from a fringe sect 5 centuries ago. It was never endorsed by Earth's United Council, yet now it drives an entire legion." A murmur rippled through the chamber. "They have weaponized belief," mused ethicist Solra, "transmuting hope into the lust for power." Sral placed her palms on the plinth surface, sending gentle pulses through the crystal. Diplomatic overtures have failed. Their General Campos answered our warning with defiance. If we do not respond in kind, their advance will be unstoppable. Silence fell. The only sound was the heartbeat-like resonance of the crystal floor. Elder Artol broke the stillness. Let us recall our ancient defensive compacts. The Treaty of Erlian permits the activation of collective shields and, if necessary, counter-offensives to protect non-combatants. Yes, Sral agreed. We will deploy the Aeon Array around the cluster's inner sanctum and dispatch Guardian flotillas to the Ring of Sarasun. But I fear that will only delay the inevitable. Vile's starlit eyes met hers. Delay grants time for us to forge alliances with neighboring species. Unity is our strongest weapon against fanaticism. Sral allowed herself a small nod. Prepare envoys to the Jikar and the Velu. Simultaneously ready our fleets for immediate engagement. We fight not for conquest, but for balance. As the council disbanded, Rivak approached, datapads in hand. Deployment protocols are ready, Captain. The Aeon Array can be online in 20 cycles. Sral's crest shield flared softly. Good. And our envoys? En route, he confirmed, though their shuttle skirts the edge of human patrols. Sral turned toward the viewport. Below, the Ring of Sarasun gleamed against the starfield, its crystal spires half melted. Civilian vessels adrift. She inhaled deeply, tasting the charged particles of impending war. In war, she whispered, we must remain true to who we are. Then, voice rising with quiet determination, she spoke aloud. Sound battle stations. Let Earth's children learn that the Arinthian collective stands not as conquerors, but as guardians of harmony. The ship's horn reverberated through every corridor, a clarion call that war had truly begun. And in the deep calm before the storm, two species readied, themselves for a clash that would reshape the fate of the stars. The Ring of Sarasun hung like a jeweled halo around the silent void, its crystalline spires reflecting starlight into soft rainbows. Trade vessels from half a dozen species drifted lazily between stations, their crews engrossed in routine exchanges of goods and stories. Children from nearby colonies played hologames in transparent domes, and diplomats strolled peaceful promenades, unaware that the peace was about to shatter. Captain Sral's envoy shuttle, cloaked in adaptive resonance. Fields slipped into the outer docking bay. A faint hiss announced the hatch's seal as the Arinthian diplomats, resplendent in flowing robes of prismatic silk, stepped into the corridor, their bioluminescent tendrils gently aglow with cautious hope. Negotiations were to begin in an hour, assurances of neutrality, offers of shared research, and perhaps a measure of reparations for earlier misunderstandings. Then the first salvo struck. A thunderous roar shook the asteroid beneath their feet. The docking bay's lights flickered as kinetic rounds slammed into the reinforced walls, gouging chasms of molten stone. The air filled with acrid smoke and the piercing wail of alarms. Arinthians and Sarasunians alike scrambled for cover as the human flotilla advanced, their silver-winged frigates streaking through the ring like deadly comets. Retreat to safe zones, Sral ordered, voice calm but urgent. Her mandibles flexed as she activated the shuttle's micro-shield. Outside the viewport, brilliant arcs of plasma sliced through the trading decks, turning polished crystal into shards of incandescent glass. Inside the courtyard, human dropships disgorged armored soldiers wielding electromagnetic lances that carved silhouettes into the translucent walls. Civilians fled in every direction, skittering across catwalks, plunging into evacuation tubes that led to hidden bunkers. But before they could reach safety, the lances discharged in rippling blue waves, collapsing corridors into twisted wreckage and enveloping terrified bystanders in swirling embers. Sral slammed her palm against the viewport. They're targeting non-combatants, she hissed. Lieutenant Rivak's tendrils pulsed a furious red as he keyed a comlink to the Aurora's Grace. "Captain, our cloaked guardians are engaging human fighters, but they're outnumbered 2-1. Civilian loss estimates are rising fast." Sral's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "Hold position. We cannot escalate to full bombardment until our diplomats have a chance to withdraw." She tapped a series of glyphs, deploying micro-drones that flitted from the shuttle's hull to create a shimmering corridor of safety. As the Oromai diplomats gathered, a young Saracenian mother stumbled into the shuttle's open hatch, clutching a bleeding child. The woman's eyes bore the shock of witnessing her home's betrayal. Sral knelt beside her, gently taking the child into her arms. The infant's cerulean skin trembled. Its breaths came in ragged bursts. "Stay with me," Sral whispered, activating the medbot's healing nanofluid. The child's cries softened, turning into hushed sobs. Around them, the corridor's adaptive shields glowed golden, warding off stray debris. But above the shuttle shelter, a deafening barrage of missile pod salvos ripped through the station's spine. Great columns of shimmering dust and molten fragments hurled into space, carrying with them the lives of traders, families, and diplomats alike. The ring's grand media towers, once broadcasting messages of unity, now fed live footage of the carnage: exploding walkways, trees aflame in artificial parks, water vaporizing from glassed-over fountains. On the Aurora's Grace, Sral's voice trembled as she issued the order: "Counter-strike at Sector Gamma 5. Target their landing platforms. Disable. Do not destroy. We will not become monsters." Within moments, the galaxy's quiet was pierced by Orinthian graviton pulses, calibrated to collapse structural girders rather than vaporize flesh. In the carnage below, human troops were momentarily thrown into disarray as half-fallen platforms buckled, pitching combatants into the air. Yet the humans adapted swiftly. From within the shuttle's comm feed, Sral heard a chilling proclamation: "Victory is inevitable, press on." The words were spoken with elation, as though they were celebrating the opening act of a grand festival. Sral closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every life lost in this futile contest of might. She remembered the Orinthian teachings. War was a wound, and even a justified wound needed tending. Shifting her mandibles into a steely line, she vowed that the healing would begin, even if she had to fight through fire and blood to reach it. As shuttles evacuated the wounded, and the ring of Saracen's battered structures creaked ominously, the first true blood of this interstellar war stained the void. And in that crimson glow, Captain Sral understood that the battle had only just begun, and that every choice from now on would echo across the stars for generations to come. The Orinthian home cluster lay before Aurora's Grace like a shattered mosaic, its polished crystal cities dulled to jagged wreckage. Through the viewport, Captain Sral watched streams of refugees, unsteady survivors of streets turned to rivers of molten glass, drift between half-collapsed spires. The once gleaming towers of Luminaris Prime now stood as hollow husks, their prismatic walls bleached white by the heat of human plasma strikes. In the ship's medical bay, bioluminescent medbots flitted among rows of wounded. Lieutenant Rivak hovered by a hovering pod, monitoring a young scholar whose neural pathways had been seared by an electromagnetic lance. Outside, the wrenching sobs of displaced families mingled with the soft hum of life support systems, creating a dirge for a civilization brought to its knees. "Sral," Rivak called, voice tight. "Diplomatic channels are open. Our plea has been broadcast on every human frequency we can reach." On a holoscreen, the charismatic visage of the captain addressed millions. "People of Tevrael, this war need not end in oblivion. You seek glory in conquest, we seek harmony in coexistence. Lay down your arms and let us heal together." The response, however, came not in words of peace, but in the thunder of distant bombardments against the peripheral moon bases. A defiant anthem, harsh percussion and triumphant horns blared from captured Orinthian transmitters. In every note, Sral heard the chilling conviction of an enemy convinced of its righteousness. Gathering her remaining officers in the command chamber, Sral allowed herself a moment of frank sorrow. They have taken our worlds, desecrated our homes, and glorify their violence. Yet in this crucible of fire, we must forge our future. We cannot simply retreat. Ethicist Solra stepped forward, her tendrils glowing pale green. We save what we can. Cultural archives, seed vaults, the last living specimens of endangered biomes. Even if our cities fall, our essence will endure. Historian Val added, voice echoing softly, we record everything, their triumphs and their tragedies. If peace arrives, there must be truth in the record, so no one may ever again mistake zeal for justice. With that resolve, Aurora's Grace initiated Operation Hearthbound. Guardian flotillas swept through fractured corridors of space, securing humanitarian corridors even as they defended against human incursions. Convoys carrying relief supplies, food strains synthesized from Orinthian algae, medical nanites, and crystal-harvested water, pierced the embattled zones to find pockets of survivors. Days later, as fractured sunlight streamed through the portholes, Sral stood once more on the observation deck. Below, the ring of Sarasun's battered remnants glimmered in quiet aftermath, survivors beginning to rebuild shelters among the ruins. On one outlying ring station, humans and Orinthians worked side by side, repairing conduits and sharing stories in a fragile hush. In the hush, Sral felt the echo of her plea answered, not in the thunder of weapons, but in the tentative hum of common purpose. We are not healers alone, she whispered, but in the end, it is healing that defines us. Somewhere beyond the ashen horizons, hope stirred like the first green shoot through scorched earth. And though the scars of war would never fully fade, two species stood at the brink of a new chapter, one written not in blood, but in the quiet covenant of rebuilding together.